Well, welcome to another episode of Behind the Agency. Today, I'm excited to chat with Brian Koffler. He is the head of D.I.G.S marketing. And the thing I'm really excited to talk about today is you do demand gen, basically for B2B SaaS. But when we talked a little while ago, you mentioned that you run kind of a part of that playbook for yourselves. And I think a lot of other agency owners would be really curious and interested in kind of what that looks like. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, what made you, I guess, was it an easy choice for you to go from doing this demand gen for these B2B SaaS companies and then thinking, oh, maybe we should apply the parts that are relevant to our own company? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think you said it. Like, it's pretty natural if this is what you do every day for work, to apply the principles or some of the same strategies or tactics for our own business. I think for me, it kind of kicked off when we got to the point of capacity and when I was ready to expand our book of business outside of just pure referrals. My brain went to, how do we get business from people that don't know me personally? Kind of naturally, it's like, oh, this is what we help companies do at a larger scale. So I think how the ad platforms work, kind of what works and what doesn't work. I mean, we see it every day with our clients. So yeah, we adapted the strategies, but overall, like the thought process is what we do every day for our clients, and the strategies and the campaigns is what we're experts in. So yeah, like I think it was pretty natural to start doing it for ourselves to generate business when the timing made sense, where we wanted more clients.
Yeah. When you, I guess when you think about doing demand gen for an agency versus doing demand gen for B2B SaaS company, is it that like the fundamental strategy is different, or it's just kind of a portion of what you would do for SaaS? Like, how do you think about, like, what are the differences?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the agency and the budgets more than anything. At a super large agency that had thousands of clients, or maybe even hundreds of clients, I actually think it would be almost identical to what we're doing for B2B SaaS companies. It's more of a budget allocation thing of, in order for things to work on paid ads, you need to fund them properly. And I would rather fund one thing well than try to do too many things and none of them work. So I think most agencies are probably not spending tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on paid ads on themselves like B2B SaaS companies are. So, but fundamentally, I don't think it's very different, especially if you're selling to B2B leaders, which for like we are and a lot of agencies are. That's similar buyers to what many SaaS companies are selling to. So in that sense, the principles basically apply across both.
Gotcha. So it's less of a volume game, though. Just probably more on the budget side of things, like your bootstrapped agency versus like venture-backed SaaS company. There's a lot more risk profile that this probably comes into play.
Yeah. And also, like, venture-backed software companies have goals that are often crazy to raise the next round, right?
Yeah.
Or to exit. Most agencies don't need to do that and can steadily grow slower over a period of time in a more stable manner. So like the need to dump the fuel on the fire and spend a ton of money is not as urgent in my experience.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, one of the things, I mean, we talked about this before, but there's always a foundational piece that needs to be in place for any of this stuff to work. It's not just a turn on this faucet and look at all the leads come in. There's some work that needs to be done ahead of time, right? And that's positioning. Can you talk a little bit about like what that looks like in what you guys do?
Yeah. First of all, I think you nailed it. I wish it was as easy as turning on a faucet and spending and things just working. That would make my life a lot easier.
I think a lot of people would like
my business and for our clients. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. So yeah, I think you need to have a position that you can clearly articulate and how it is different, and then ideally have content around that position that you can then share with the world. I mean, I know that's like pretty broad, but I don't think there's a necessarily a set, you need these 4 things for it to work. But I do think you need positioning and like what you do as the agency that is different than every other agency, and how you do it, and be able to communicate that. And then also have content that could be posts, that could be long form content, that could be podcasts that speaks to that topic and tangential topics, so people can know you for something. I think that is like super important and that applies for agency and any other company. Because you need to be amplifying something. So
yeah, and it has to be distinctive, right? Like it can't just be the best practices that every other competitor of yours is also talking about, right?
Yeah, I think like one of the downfalls of a lot of smaller agencies that I see is like it is not clear what they do. They use a lot of general terms, like they do marketing, right? Or even like digital marketing. That's like everyone else.
Yeah.
You need to be remembered for something that is unique. And it doesn't mean that you have to do something that's completely unheard of. It just means you need to have a unique twist or a unique package or a unique point of view on something that people remember and understand.
Yeah. Or a combination of all those.
Or a combination of all of those.
Yeah. Like, oh, we just work with hospitals and we have the specific methodology for how we get X result or something like that. It's like, okay, cool. We just like stacked a bunch of differentiating things. And now when we produce content, it has kind of like this strong point of view about like why, working with hospitals, you have to do things a certain way.
That's a great example. I think I've heard people say this before. This is not an original thought, but it's a good point, which is you want to produce content that speaks to a individual person and have that person in mind. So like in the example you just gave, like managing director or C-level at a hospital, if that is your agency, like all of your point of view and content should resonate with that role. If you are trying to sell your services to any company or any B2B company or any B2C company or any retail company, it's you are not specific enough, and it's hard to write for like anyone if you are that general.
Yeah. No, I used to work at a conversion optimization agency, and we always used to say, if you're trying to reach everyone, you're going to reach no one.
Yeah, that's a good saying too, right? And it's true. Yeah. It's true about your ads. It's true about your positioning. It's true about your website. All of it applies.
Yeah, it's like just a classic sort of copywriting rule that like if you're talking to too many people, you're just going to be so watered down in what you're saying that it's not going to resonate with anyone.
Yep. And I think it's important that it aligns with like your talk track on your sales calls and the client experience once somebody is a client, and then also like what you are putting out in the world. It's like a full circle has to make sense, not just part of it, or else the whole thing doesn't flow and doesn't break, and it will break.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit, just kind of get into the nitty gritty about, when you're thinking about running these ads for an agency rather than a SaaS company. We talked previously that like, you only target maybe 14,000 people, which, in the ads world, that's a pretty small audience, right? Can you talk a little bit about like what made you arrive at that number, and like maybe what advice you would give to other agencies that are thinking about running paid ads?
I don't think that like there is a specific number that is right or wrong, but I do think you need to have a specific persona to start that the more dialed in, the better. So what we do and what we did is we just looked at our customer base and our best customers and pulled out a bunch of characteristics: job title, company size, how long they've been in the role. For example, for us, one of the things that we know is like a trigger point is like people who are 6 months into their role or less they are looking for help, an agency like D.I.G.S or help. So it's kind of a data point that we've collected. That's one example, but a good data point that we collected. It's like, oh, people who are new in seat are a higher chance of being a good fit for D.I.G.S at a certain company. So like the list became 14,000 people because in LinkedIn, we added a lot of filters to basically try to only reach people that are prospective buyers and at the right size companies and the industries. I think people are often mistaken in the fact of like, even with a small list, you can still spend thousands of dollars a month and not reach all of them, or only reach them one time in a month. And the whole name of the game is repetition and recognition. So I would personally rather, especially on a limited budget, I would rather have the same 14,000 people who are perfect fits see our stuff 5 times than have people who are not perfect fits see our stuff and take away impressions and clicks from people who are the right fits.
Yeah. You don't want to just dilute it, basically send it to stuff that send stuff to people who aren't even going to care.
We had 13,000 customers, then I would say, okay, we need to expand the list from 14,000 people, but we have between 20 and 30. So that 14,000 list is going to last a while.
Yeah.
So I think that is a trap people fall into.
No, absolutely.
Where they're like, oh, this is too small, or this isn't a big enough list, especially for an agency. I don't think that's usually the case.
Yeah. Well, if they're already positioned too broadly, they're probably going to naturally be like, oh, we're going to target 3 different ICPs.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't resonate and they spend more money. Versus if they have done that work of positioning well, they have like one clear ICP and they know a lot of characteristics of that ICP. They can bring their list down. They can have their budget go further, quite frankly, right?
I actually give a lot of people this advice, both agencies and companies, which is even if you have multiple ICPs, I would actually just choose one to start always.
Yeah.
Funnel the budget and the thought and the effort into that one and the positioning. And then if it's going great, you can always expand. But I would never try to do multiple at the beginning because it's not going to work as well.
Absolutely. One of the things I was curious about, I think we talked about this some before, is, there's different stages of the funnel too, right? So you're showing ads to people, among this 14,000, say, in your case, you kind of have broken it up by like, there's bottom of the funnel stuff where it's like, these are people who are pretty ready to buy. And then there's other people who are just like, they're just kind of in the ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like and how you think about that?
Yeah. So I think like classic marketing funnel stages, right? There's like cold and warm, or top or bottom of the funnel. One of our philosophies is that you want to be spending 70 to 80% of your budget, whatever that budget is, on the cold layer for awareness. So that's, there is no conversion action. That is just getting your content, whatever that content is, in front of those people with no immediate ask from them. Maybe there's a download a piece of content, but no like sales call or demo request or anything like that. And we see that getting people aware of D.I.G.S often leads to them coming to D.I.G.S organically, even though it's not organic, when the time is right, because we have been in their LinkedIn feed in their realm and their sphere for months. We also see that when you think about like conversions or booking calls, it's much more effective when you're only showing those ads to people who are already warm, who have been in your sphere, who have engaged with something, maybe downloaded a piece of content. So usually that equates to around like 20 to 30% of the budget, but you really need to fund the cold layer to continually get people warm, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you talked about how you can kind of turn off and on that bottom of the funnel section, depending on your capacity, right?
Correct. Like for us, there are times where we are at capacity or close to capacity where I don't want 5 calls booked in a week because we wouldn't have the man or woman power, or we don't want, for whatever reason, new clients in that given time frame. I will never turn off the top of funnel awareness piece ever, because that is what fuels future growth. So yeah, that's a good point. Same thing with the middle of the funnel. Like if you have traditional content downloads, I would say like that stuff is great for building future pipeline and future sales calls. I would recommend not ever turning that stuff off. Swapping it in new stuff, yes, but not turning off the content completely.
Yeah.
And then you can decide whether to run the bottom of the funnel or how aggressively you want to run the bottom of the funnel layer to actually get calls booked in the given month.
Gotcha. When you think about the content that is going to resonate, are there any sort of like principles that you use? I mean, I know
Yeah.
there's thought leadership ads. I know people have webinars and ebooks, and like and some of those maybe are like more SaaS plays. And I don't know, like of those plays, are there some that work better or worse for agencies in your experience?
You're going to hate this answer, but all of it can work if it's done the right way. So I actually don't think that there is a right or wrong there. I think it's like, what are you good at producing and what resonates? So for us, thought leadership ads on LinkedIn, and I write pretty consistently on LinkedIn, have done very well for a top of funnel motion and awareness. We've gotten the motion down of writing them. I've gotten pretty good at like understanding what works for engagement and what people care about in my audience. My team actually has started writing organic posts that we boost for thought leadership. So that works for us. But like, if you did webinars weekly and they were super valuable to your audience, that would also work very well. Or if you were on podcasts all the time and promoted them or had your own. So I don't think there's a right or wrong there. It's just like choose something or two things in this case that you are committed to. And the biggest thing is like making sure it resonates with that audience. So for me, it's like that 14,000 audience. Is it resonating? And double down.
Yeah. Is it mainly like content that is addressing like some sort of like the pain points of your audience in general?
I like thinking about it as like anything that the person in the seat that I am writing to would resonate with is good for me to write about. So some of that is like direct pain points that D.I.G.S solves about paid ads. Some of it is like my thoughts on certain topics that are not within D.I.G.S scope, but like within the VP of marketing at a SaaS company's sphere. And then honestly, about a third of my posts are like funny, sarcastic, things that only somebody in the seat or in that type of role would like resonate with. Like being pulled in a million different directions or being in Zoom meetings back to back to back, right? Like that's not actually a D.I.G.S service or anything like that, but it does resonate with the ICP, and you want to have people think of you as someone who gets it for whatever industry or whatever role you're selling to. So I think it is a mix, to your point. Some of it needs to be about the problem and about what you actually do, but in general, you just want your content to resonate with the person in the seat that you are selling to, like in their world. What are they thinking about?
Yeah. And I mean, you'd promote all of that, not just like the stuff that, or like, do you decide what you're going to promote?
Good question. Yeah, it's a mix. I usually promote the things that do well organically. Number one. And then, most of the stuff I'm promoting is the stuff that is a little more core to like the problem or the issues that D.I.G.S solves. But I do throw in promotion to some just like content that I post that resonated really well, even if it's not necessarily like a D.I.G.S problem post or a solutions post. My general philosophy is like, if people are engaging, D.I.G.S is coming up in their LinkedIn feed, they're seeing more of our posts. That is good. So I'm happy to spend some dollars on those posts as well. Those are still related to like our world. They're just not like, this is why you should work with D.I.G.S type of post.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So it sounds kind of like, if you wanted a starting point, without the paid side of things, you could just start organically posting.
That's
and kind of pay attention to the stuff that is like your ICP is actually engaging with, and you're like, oh, this seemed to do pretty well. Maybe I need to put some paid spend behind it, in the form of a thought leadership ad.
That is exactly what I did, like to a T. And that's what most people should and do before you start spending any paid dollars, because if it's not resonating organically at all, the chances of paid working is not super high.
Yeah.
So yeah, the dollar amounts and the amount of posts, like that can change based on specific case by case basis, but in general, paid is a great amplification for things that are working. It is not a way to test if things are working.
Yeah. Or it can be really expensive if you do
Or
use it that way, right?
a super bad way of testing, I should say.
Yeah, totally. Well, we talked a little bit about thought leadership ads, which I know that's kind of like LinkedIn. I think they rolled it out a year or two ago. Are there any sort of like principles around, I don't know, what is a good thought leadership ad and what's a bad thought leadership ad?
Yeah, the good thought leadership ad is a post that works well organically that doesn't read like an ad. So like the general advice, and most of our software clients are also running thought leadership ads, so this actually applies basically for any use case.
Yeah.
The more it comes off as organic and authentic, the better it will perform. So you want it to read like a human wrote it, as a stream of consciousness, and it can have a story and it could have like, a hook, and it should have a hook, but you need it to, the more it comes off authentic, the better. And that's across the board. It is coming from a person's profile, not a company's profile, so it needs to read like a person wrote it. You can use AI, like there's no issues with that, but I wouldn't. The second somebody reads something and they're like, this comes across as like a promotion, it will not work as well.
Yeah, they kind of shut down. They're like, oh, I don't want to be promoted to.
Yeah, it's like a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
Those posts always get less engagement. I mean, there's all these stats that I've seen that like posts that have the word I or me in like the first sentence or two perform better because they're personal. I don't write every post that with an I or a me in the first sentence, but I do try to write all of my posts, or at least tweak all of my thoughts that are posts to make them engaging and like come off as real as possible, not like they are part of this ads play.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
A lot of like pictures, videos that are like from your cell phone type of thing, those do very well versus like a curated photoshopped post, basically.
Right, like a super polished
Correct.
Thing. Looks like a studio sort of did it. Well, I know another question that I think would come up with a lot of agency folks who are maybe exploring this is, you mentioned, some of these SaaS companies have much bigger budgets. Is there like a ballpark that like when an agency is looking to kind of invest in this, maybe like on the low end, it's this, and it can go all the way up to, just so like people have a realistic idea of like, hey, you know what, like there is like you do need to at least budget X for paid ads.
So part of that, a big part of that is your audience size and how tight or broad your list is.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like a set minimum or maximum, but I do think for paid ads to work at some level, you're probably going to need to spend at least like $2,000 a month minimum if you're doing like one ad platform to one specific ICP and like one content play, basically like thought leadership posts or webinars. The flip side is like it's basically unlimited if it's working, and depending on how big your ICP is. So but I think like, I don't think it's a huge investment monthly to start. I think it's, I don't know, $2,000 ish minimum is a good starting point if your ICP is super defined and the list isn't huge. If it's more broad, you're probably looking at like $4,000 to $6,000 a month. But I think that's like realistic for getting at least our initial early signals to know what to do and what to not do after a month or two.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, it's a good motivator to be really ruthless with that, like how focused your ICP is, right?
Yeah, like the messaging and the ICP will determine the budget and the success more than the ads or the posts.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. Well, one of the things that we also talked about was um, kind of like how long you might need to wait. Like,
Mm.
basically how long till we know whether this is working or not. Like, what if
Mhm.
people they're following all these steps? Is it like, and this is probably hard to answer, one way. It depends, but yeah, like I guess what advice do you give to people around how patient they need to be?
Into so success is a tough word because it looks different for everyone, and I think defining what that means is important upfront for everyone, and there's not a unified answer there. But I what I usually tell people is within like the first 2 months, you should at least be having leading indicators of what is working and what is not working and where it would make sense to double down if you wanted to double down. That could be like specific type of post, that could be a specific post that worked well, that could be audiences working or not working, meaning like, oh, it's not resonating, audience is too broad. So I like to think of it like that. Like you should know the next steps pretty clearly after 2 months and have at least a few different hypotheses or a few different things to do next to generate results. So often that looks like one or two small wins on very limited pieces of data and then doubling down on those things and cutting the rest and seeing if that leads to scale.
Nice.
Yeah. So like often what will happen is you will have a bunch of content or posts, and maybe over the first 2 months you get one or two people who reach out to you and you ask them, how did you hear about us? And they say, oh, this post, right? That's like a data point. It's not statistically significant yet, but like that's better than not having that data. And
Right.
so writing more posts like that or promoting that post more or promoting that post to a specific audience because it's the person who reached out is part of that audience is kind of like how I would think about the type of data you should be collecting in the first 2 months to make an educated guess on what to do.
Yeah. Like you're looking for those indicators.
Yeah, it's a good word. And it's never one place where people go wrong in paid ads is that they expect after 2 or 3 months to have the answers, like figured out. It's like, no, you will have some indicators. It's a good way of framing it that make us have 4 more educated guesses over the next 2 months of what to do. And then we'll
Yeah.
learn 2 other things and it compounds. But if you expect it to just quote unquote work, whatever that means to you after a month or two, that's just not how paid ads work. Also with budgets and signals of the ad platforms and conversion data, right? It just takes time for the platform to understand what is working.
Yeah.
So
No, and then that's what I hear. I mean, about paid ads in general a lot is, like, oh, we tried it for 3 months and nothing came of it, or we got bad quality leads, and so we shut it off. And it's like, well, part of the reason that didn't work could be like you weren't positioned very well.
mhm.
Maybe you were targeting too large an audience. Like maybe the content was too promotional. Like there's so many factors where it's like if you don't really like thread the needle just right, you're not going to get results.
Correct. Maybe your budget wasn't enough. Maybe your budget was too much and you were doing too many different things, right? Like
Yeah.
um that's why like I push back whenever I hear like paid ads didn't work or this thing didn't work because even that sentence is like pretty subjective. Like what does work actually mean?
Hmm.
My experience tells me that I bet we could find 5 things that we could do better or 5 things that clearly did not work and cut those if we tried this again and see better results, right?
Yeah.
Like are I use this line a lot on my sales because like, are you going to see 100 qualified leads in month 1? No. So when someone says like, do paid ads work? Like, is that what they're looking for? I don't know. If they are, that's unrealistic. But
Yeah.
they're looking for indicators to try the next tactic or thing and then double down if that works and scale that. Like yes, that's how I would think about it.
Yeah. Like if they need to use paid ads in order to reach their audience, it's like, okay, well, let's focus on getting this done in the right way
Right.
so that we're setting you up for success as much as possible.
Yes. And understanding or having a good understanding of what is working in the scheme of paid ads and what is not working is super valuable because then you can adjust and skew to the things that are only work, right? So like that sounds super obvious, but like we have clients on the software side where it's taken months to figure out this type of content or this specific type of post works really well on LinkedIn. And so if you looked at that in a short time frame, you'd say, oh, LinkedIn ads didn't work. But if you look at that over a year, by the end, LinkedIn ads are working very well because we've took a bunch of time to figure out what specific thing was or wasn't working and then adjust.
Yeah.
So patience is key. I think
Experimentation organically is probably
experimentation
pretty important.
organically is key. I think like another thing that often people don't give enough credence to is like ad platforms. The algorithm works by learning. So like if you are running ads from an ad platform that has never run ads before, you are starting from absolute zero for both yourself and the ad platform. That is a very different scenario than coming into an ad platform for an agency or for any company that's been spending tens of thousands of dollars a month for 6 months and has data. So you have to learn as like the human, but the platform also has to learn of like what is driving engagement and conversions, and that takes time. So having a budget that you are comfortable with for 6 month or 12-month period and adjusting within that, but at least having it bookmarked is a much better scenario than like I'm going to run paid ads for a month and see what happens. That's like not a good mindset with paid ads. It will not work.
It's just a recipe for burning some money and not getting any results.
I tell people all the time, like if you're thinking about it that way, you may as well go take that money and do something like go hire a person or go to another event or I don't know, get new water bottles for your team, right? Like, because like that is just not how it is going to lead to success with paid ads. If you were thinking about it on that short of a time frame from a account or company that has no paid ads data or limited paid ads data.
Yeah.
So even for me, like for D.I.G.S, I had 6 months of money basically for ads bookmarked out. Obviously we've adjusted and now it's been 2 years of running ads and the budgets have increased, but like I was going to run 6 months of ads, adjusting as I learned things along the way before I decided anything.
Yeah. So you have to have that sort of longer term mindset, knowing that it's kind of like, it's the whole idea of getting a flywheel going, like it's going to be a lot more work up front, but as soon as you get that momentum going, then it takes less and less
100%.
to keep it going. Right.
Yeah. And you learn what works. So you only do the things that work. And then the chances of it working again is much higher. Like not 100%, but you're starting from an advantage point of view instead of like a unknown point of view once you get a few things that work. And again, that could be specific content, that could be an audience, that could be a type of content format, meaning like video versus webinar versus single image versus thought leadership post, right? That could be a style of content, meaning like very personalized content versus more industrial or more professionalized, right? Like these are all things that you may have to test, and often one of them or a few of them work. And when it works, it's pretty obvious because it's usually like way better than the baseline in terms of like engagement or downloads or DMs or whatever the thing is that you're trying to get.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned kind of this a little bit is just kind of your own experience running your own ads. I know you've said when we talked before around like you kind of capped, the amount of clients you want to have at one time. And that's, kind of dictated when you're turning on and off your bottom of funnel ads. Can you talk just, I guess, around, I don't know, like, I guess maybe your decision around that, like, we don't want to just like go crazy and scale up. Like, what's the thinking there?
I think for us, it's pretty simple. Like, I have strong opinions that I always want the awareness layer, the top and middle of the funnel running, because that's what builds long-term pipeline and awareness for D.I.G.S. So I will never turn that off. I may increase or decrease budgets a little bit month over month or quarter over quarter, but that's pretty consistent. And I'm always going to be putting out new content, even if we're not taking new clients for future pipeline building. For us, we are like a boutique niche agency. So we don't have a team of 100 people internally on purpose. So there are points where we're at capacity or close to client capacity, and we will take new intro calls, but we get enough of those organically without the paid bottom of the funnel portion that there are months or quarters where we scale that down or turn it off. And it's literally just a capacity issue. Like, issue is not the right word. It's a capacity decision. And if we had more internal capacity, which we definitely could in the future, that would change. Yeah, I think the bigger point of view is that, like, I would not turn off the majority of the ads, which are not bottom of the funnel, even at capacity.
Right. Like that I think you said 70 or 80%.
75%. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Just because I don't want to get in a situation where I have 5 or 6 calls booked in a 2-week period and can't, even if they're perfect fit clients and
yeah,
we're ready to get going. If we can't do, like, that's a bad experience for that person. So I would rather have them see the content, keep them warm, and then, like, either they'll reach out to me anyway, even without the bottom of the funnel ads, or when the time is right and we turn those ads back on, if we had a few clients leave or we have more capacity or we hire more people, right? Like, those are people are super warm who have now been seeing our stuff and just not having the chance to convert.
Yeah. I guess you said something that made me have another quick question, just around, we've talked a lot about these thought leadership ads, the variety that they can be, what they can look like, but you've talked about turning on and off bottom of funnel ads. Does a bottom of funnel ad, is that more of like, this is like the book a meeting sort of thing, or what exactly is in a bottom of funnel ad in your mind?
I've seen them. So in general, a bottom of the funnel ad is one that has like a call to action. And traditionally that's like a book a call or book a demo call to action. I've seen people get creative and then work very well with messaging that resonates with their audience. So it could be like, have a virtual lunch on us. It could be a VIP ticket or experience to an event that you're going to be at, or you're right. It doesn't have to be a demo, but usually it's a call to action. So there's like something that you are trying to get people to do. So for example, and I haven't done this for myself, but for example, if I was going to be speaking at an event, I could run bottom of the funnel ads to people saying, I'm going to be at this event. Are you, like, let me know if you're going to be there and we should get coffee, right? Because for D.I.G.S, that is basically equivalent of like a sales call. So yeah, I think it's like, there's just a call to action and you can get creative on what it is. The most standard one is like, learn about, like, book a call and learn about what D.I.G.S does or how we help XYZ other companies.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. The other thing you said, and just in passing, that I thought was interesting was, even when you do have those bottom of funnel ads turned off, because you're running those top of funnel ads all the time, you could still have some people like come to your website and fill out lead forms without actually, filling out that CTA. Yeah.
I have like, yeah, it's actually a really good point. In the times where we are not running bottom of the funnel ads, when I get on calls with people who book a time on my calendar, 90% of them are when I ask, how'd you hear about me? It's LinkedIn. So they are basically self-selecting bottom of the funnel without me needing to run the ad, like, right. And that is because they're in our pool of 13,000, or someone that they're connected to is, and I keep coming up on their feed organically and or because of my boosting. They have some event where the time is right and they book a time, and that is usually either via DM to me directly or literally going to the website, booking a time. It will never say LinkedIn on like the attribution for that, because they didn't directly click the paid ad and convert. But like, I know that anecdotally 75% of them, or not, or if not higher, are because they have seen my LinkedIn posts.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you, I don't know if you've even tracked this information, but one thing I guess I'm curious about is whether um, like the retention or the lifetime value of clients
It's higher.
is it's higher for these people
Yeah,
who kind of
it's the same, if not higher, than any other way of acquiring customers. Yeah, I do
hmm.
track it. It's not lower if that's like where you're.
Well, I was just curious because I mean, I think specifically with thought leadership ads, it's interesting because it's like they could be kind of they could be introduced to kind of your way of thinking, your philosophy on
Mhm.
things, and so they're almost kind of become like bought into your
Yeah,
framework or your thinking before becoming a client, and then that's probably more likely to make them stick around because
yeah,
they're not just somebody who saw an ad and was like, oh, I need paid ads, click, and you're not as interchangeable.
yeah. No, that's a good point. It's not quite like a referral, but it's not that far off. Where it's
Mm,
like a referrals, right? Somebody who like told someone to reach out to you because they had a good experience, probably. Usually, those are the best type of sales calls.
yeah,
The thought leadership and the bottom of the funnel LinkedIn ads are not quite that warm, but yes, people come knowing who you are and your point of view. I mean, I literally have people on sales calls all the time say, your post, blah, 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 spoke to me, and this is the situation I'm in. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, great. So you know my opinion. And they're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like I don't have to convince you of something. You're already convinced, so we're already kind of on to step 2 or 3.
correct. And like, to be clear, there's still a full sales process. They're still
Mhm.
evaluating other people, probably. Like, it's not like a in the bag, quote unquote, but it is much warmer than like a cold ad kind of, or even like a Google ad submission would be on just like, yeah, paid ad help or something, right? Like
Yeah.
people, and also one thing about LinkedIn specifically is people usually click through and like read a few of my posts if they like one.
Mm,
So they're getting even more familiar, even if it's not the one that resonated with them. They've now like read 4 posts about a few different topics.
yeah,
Um,
and they're kinda getting more and kinda deeper into your way of thinking. So if you have kinda like this unique point of view that you've
100%.
developed, um, like they're drinking from a fire hose,
Yeah, and
which is
also
great.
like funny things happen, right? They'll see someone who comments on my post that they know because they've like now seen a bunch of my posts, right? So they'll be
Yeah.
like, "How do you know Joe?" It's like, "Oh, I worked with Joe," right? That just leads to like a great sales conversation.
Yeah,
Um, and especially on LinkedIn, like it's a huge platform, obviously, but the people who are commenting and engaging on the specific types of content are usually in the same worlds or same communities or same industries at a minimum. So like you get a lot of that I don't know the right word, but like you get a lot of
like
that,
cross-pollination
yeah,
sort of
cross
stuff.
pollination from the ads to organic to somebody that you know. And it works the other way too. Like somebody will respond to one of my posts or DM me, and I'll realize like, oh, this person worked at a company that I know somebody that like led marketing or sales there. So I'll reach out to that person and be like, do you know this person? Anything I should know? And it's often the answer is like, yeah, they're a great person. Like I'll tell them that we know each other. So the indoctrination, that's like it sounds like a negative way of putting it. Like the getting into your sphere on, especially on LinkedIn, is like
Yeah,
really good for the pre-sales relationship already being strong.
yeah, that totally makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And if they weren't
Well
connected with you, they wouldn't be in that. That's the important thing about the paid side.
mhm,
It is possible for that to happen organically, obviously, but the paid motion gets people who are not necessarily in that sphere organically into the sphere because you are targeting them. And
yeah,
once they engage or once they like or once they DM you, they are now going to get served more and more of your stuff.
yeah, which is gonna be good for them and for you. So it's kind of a win-win.
Totally. I've had people like that have been engaging in my stuff for literally over a year on the paid and organic side. Nothing sales wise happens, and then they get a new job. And like 2 weeks after they get a new job, they're like, "We need help with paid ads." And I know you, like they literally like, "I know you because we've been engaging on this platform for 6 months, and I know how you think about things."
Yeah,
And that's like um, super great sales conversation, and the paid motion really gives that kick in the behind for that to happen a lot more than it would organically.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I've heard a lot of people talk about paid ads. I've been on that side of things, like trying to run paid ads for myself within an agency. So um, I would say up till now, I'm been a paid ad skeptic for agencies. But I mean, everything that I think sends off like red flags for me, like none of that has been set off. Like essentially all the things that you talk about, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that
Thank you.
makes sense. Like, and so I would, I guess for people who would want to talk with you,
Mhm.
if they're a B2B SaaS company or they're an agency, if you're even interested in
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
on some agency clients, or even just talk with you about kind of how you're doing it for yourself, what's like the best way for people to connect with you?
Happy for all of the above, first of all. Second of all, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can send you, or you can share my LinkedIn URL. Or they
Totally.
can reach me at my email, which is brian@digsmarketing.com. Very simple.
Awesome. Well, Brian, this was super fun. Like I said, I feel like I'm a believer in your approach, and I will shout that from the rooftops.
Thank you.
If people are like, it doesn't work, and it's like, well, it might not work how you're doing it, but if we can get your positioning dialed in, I think there's a playbook that you can use
100.
that will work.
That's exactly what I'd say. Like, I couldn't agree more. If things are set up correctly, it will work. There's
Yeah,
factors there, but yeah, like I appreciate it, and yeah, I'm happy to chat with anyone. Obviously, this is like what we do all day, every day. So
yeah,
happy to converse about it even more.
awesome. Well, thanks so much, and yeah, I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.